Welcome home. That's a good title. Welcome home. That's what's on the. Let's go. Here we go. Welcome home. There was actually a sign posted in the on the parade route there. I believe it was that welcomed him back to the White House. So we're talking about President Trump, and that's what we're going to be doing today. But first, let's just get started. I'm R. Frederick Riddle, and this is Christian News and Views, and it is episode 62. We're moving right along, like I said, I'm excited. I enjoy doing these, and this is particularly one that I'm enjoying doing. And we may spend some time this week on it because there's a lot of things that, as a new president, in his second term, though, we have a lot of things that are going to be taking place, already have taken place, and some of them I've been able to look at. I was actually able to watch some of it yesterday, but now by the way, he took the oath of office. So if you missed it, and he became our 47th president. So he's actually the 45th and 47th. Now they did a close up on the car, the limousine he was in, and they had a license plate on there, and they played with that 45, 47, right on the license plate, which is kind of neat. But he's now the 47th president of the United States. There were parades, celebrations, and the signing of executive orders. These were the rule of the day. Now, I'm not going to get into a lot of stuff today. I am going to get into this a little bit. But I want to ask you a question. Did you hear a sigh of relief yesterday? I did. From the east to the west, from the north to the south, I heard a huge sigh of relief. After almost 4 years, now it's 4 years, after 4 years of Biden economics, Biden foreign relations, Biden this and Biden that, most Americans are tired of it. And they went and they showed that on election day. Well, we've been waiting for yesterday to arrive, and it did. And it arrived big time. And all I can say is that after watching President Biden and Vice President Harris almost destroy our beloved country, the American people, which includes you and me, woke up and re-elected Donald Trump. That wasn't necessarily a given going into the election. Most of us believed he was going to get re-elected and everything. But we already remember what happened on 2020, or in 2020. And so, actually not 2020, 2016. Is that right? No, 2020. The election, many people believed was stolen. And there's a lot of evidence out there that indicates that is a correct view. One of the things that is a misunderstanding that people have is that the judges say that we don't find anything. Well, if you don't look, you're not going to find. And what happened was the courts, people would want to present evidence that the courts could review, and the courts turned them down over and over and over again. And so the liberal media picked it up and said, see, there's no evidence. Well, saying there's no evidence is not the same thing as there being no evidence. The evidence was there. For whatever reasons, maybe it was fear, maybe it was other things, we don't know. But judges would refuse to look at the evidence, even to look at it. And that created that misunderstanding because people just assumed, well, they must have looked at it. That's not the way it went. They refused to have it entered into court to look at it and to give it a fair hearing, so to speak. So that led to a lot of self-doubt and questioning, and it created a lot of problems for those who were trying to get to the truth. But truth has a way of coming out, and there have been several actors on the stage that have pursued the truth. And now it's been coming out, and the American people woke up, saw what was happening, and they exercised the power that actually belongs in their hands, and that's to vote. To pull that lever and vote for the candidate they want. And so they went for Donald Trump. And so yesterday he took office. And that is why I say there was a sigh of relief. We are no longer under the Biden administration. In the last days of that administration, he did what he could to make things difficult for President Trump. But Trump never batted an eye. He waited. And then, as soon as he got, not elected, but as soon as he took office, he proceeded to sign these executive orders on doing much of what President Biden had done. Now, will we have experienced impact of that right away? That will depend upon the different things. Some yes and some no. So now, if you believe the narrative that the left gives, that the left has given, then the January 6, 2021 riot was actually an insurrection, an attempt to overthrow the government. Any reasonable person could see that that was not the case. All you had to do is look up at the dictionary and get the definition of an insurrection. I was watching on TV yesterday the coverage, and one of the persons talking in the background, one of the reporters, was referring back to that, and they were talking about how they were attacking, and they were naming the things that the people were using. These are not the weapons of choice for an insurrection. They were pitchforks, different things that you might have around your farm or home or whatever that you use as a weapon. You use those things as weapons of self-defense, usually in a matter of desperation because you don't have any real weapons. They didn't have even later afterwards. The press did point out there were some bombs around somewhere. I think they were found and defused, but the ones with the weapons were the police. So it was a riot, and as such, it should have been treated as a riot. And you might hear me say this more than once. I believe that because they early on accepted this definition of insurrection, it's not really an insurrection. The government went overboard, overreacted, and we had a case of or injustice that took place. A lot of people ended up being arrested for just being there in some cases, and the evidence that was used from them, they used against them. I'm not sure that they had a fair day in court. And so it's a really messy situation, and it's on our memories. And I don't know that you can ever wipe it out completely, but President Trump, I believe, is taking first steps on that. But we'll get that in a little bit more as we go on here. Another scenario that we have heard was that there was many who died in the riot. And they continue with this. And if you were around that area and you died, that's you died because of the riot. You may not even have been there. It's just ridiculous how this went. The only one that I know of that really died in the riot was a woman who was trying to break in through a window. She was unarmed, She was shot and killed by a police officer who claimed he was in fear for his life. Now, how can you be in fear for your life of a woman going through a window, which would have rendered her a little bit harmless right there? You can't. It's hard to climb in a window with a, and she didn't have a gun. Remember that she's unarmed. So, how is she a threat? And he felt fearful for his life and shot her. Now, please don't get me wrong. I support the police. I believe the police across the nation do their very best. There are some bad apples in there, yes. You're going to find them. They're human beings. And we have bad apples everywhere. But generally speaking, they are very proactive, very dedicated to what they do. But in this particular case, this was clearly an overreaction on this police officer's part. I don't know what was going through his mind. I don't know why. Maybe he panicked, and he had a loaded gun. He could have arrested her for breaking and entering, and in that case, she would have been justified to be, like I said, to be arrested. Excuse me. So she was unarmed. She was not a threat, but he shot her. And she lost her life. Now what happened to him? Near as I can tell, he was exonerated. I don't even know if they know his name. I never saw it pop up again. I may have missed it, but I didn't see it anyhow. But the thing is, she lost her life. She shouldn't have. She died in the riot. That's the only one that I know of that actually died in the riot. Now, there was a police officer who committed suicide the next day. He did not leave a note. Now, generally speaking, if you commit suicide, it's almost standard. They always leave a note. They want people to know why they're taking their life. But he didn't leave a note. And so now we get into speculation. And the one that seems to be carrying the day, or did at that time anyhow, was, well, he took his life because he was upset with Americans trying to take over the government, to rebel, to throw the government over. No, they were not. And so that argument really falls flat on its face. It doesn't make any sense. No one really knows why he killed himself. But they felt, the press felt, and the left in general felt, this is an opportunity to blame it on the rioters. So instead of rioters, they named them insurrectionists. And instead of arresting people for rioting, they went after, the government went after them for insurrection, for high crimes and misdemeanors, if you will. But that was not an insurrection, not by any definition of the word. That's just plain nonsense. Now, I can speculate his suicide could have been due to personal problems, or he may have been upset over the way the police were used against the rioters. Now, that I can understand. As a policeman, and to be ordered to go against these people who are citizens of the country, that could have bothered him. That would have bothered anybody. And so I think that is a much more logical explanation than the one they gave. But, we can speculate all we want. None of us can prove our case. Now, by far, most of those who were arrested and convicted suffered, in my opinion, a miscarriage of justice. We kept reading about, some of them were locked up without even the benefit of a lawyer. They were locked up and treated like they were, well, as though they were insurrectionists, as they were enemies of the state. And they could have easily been tossed down a black hole and never been seen again. That's not the way our country was designed to go by and for our government to go by. It was not the way our government should ever go by. Now, uh, did some who should not have been pardoned or have their sentence commuted receive a get out of jail card? Well, that's a possibility. But the whole scenario was so corrupted that it is almost impossible to determine their guilt. So if you are going to err, it is better to err on that side of mercy than on wrongful imprisonment. So this executive order that the president signed was he pardoned and commuted sentences. There were some 1,500 people involved there. So yes, it is possible that some of those 1,500 may have deserved the prison time, but they've been in prison for a while now. That was 4 years ago when that took place, and so some of them have been in there in jail for multiple years. And the real crime that they committed may not even have required that kind of lengthy imprisonment. They were then charged with different crimes that they dreamed up. Some of those crimes, when they got appealed, were tossed out. Some of them were convicted, and some of them are still in the. I think some of them are still in the appeal stages, or were, but now they are free to go, and perhaps are already free. So there were other executive orders also that we will cover in the days ahead, but the pardons and commutations were necessary. The left will complain. But if they had been a little more truthful and not tried to hide their own complicity and overreaction, all of this could have been avoided. When you try to hide things and you have your own secret agenda and all that, it tends to mess things up. And I don't know if we'll ever get all the truth of what happened on that day. But we need calmer minds. We need people who are not married to the insurrection viewpoint. We have some people who call themselves Republicans who actually believe that Trump, that in his speech, that Trump urged the people to fight, and by that he meant for them to go over there and riot. Well, first place, the rioting was already going on while he was still talking. The distance to walk from where the crowd was around him, where he was speaking, to where the riot was going on, was long enough. The riot was well underway by the time they would have gotten there. So those are all pieces of information that came out later. And then we have the Democratic-controlled Congress trying to impeach Trump for inciting a mob, this riot. Well, no, first of all, the terms fight, we hear those terms all the day. The Democrats use them too. We fight, fight, fight. When he was attempted assassination, they even quoted it yesterday. He came up saying, fight, 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 fight. That's what I'm doing. That's what you're doing. That's what we did on election day. We fought for our country. How do we fight? We pulled that voting, that lever, or filled out that sheet, voting sheet. A ballot. That went through a machine, and so on and so forth. But that's what he meant by fighting, using our lawful weapons, if you will. Yes, I use the word weapons, but these are not weapons that kill. These are weapons like using the law the way it's supposed to be used. Going through there, suing and all that stuff. Getting the right information. There are different ways you can get that right information from the government. You can literally, legally demand that they provide you certain information and things of this nature. He was saying for them to stand up and don't let people take the power of the people away from the people. And I'm glad he said that, and I'm glad that many people stood up, and over these past several years they've been taking a stand. And those of us who have been, many of us have been praying for this day to happen, and prayer got answered. So the left's going to complain. You might as well just be used to the idea. But instead of being truthful and being open, transparent, no, they focused on pointing their fingers at President Trump and even tried to impeach him, as I already mentioned. Yet they had no real evidence of wrongdoing. And fortunately, enough of them took a stand to, again, another impeachment and another failed using government money for a political purpose. And fortunately, it failed. But they came close. So that's what some of them did. Some of them have dissected the events of that day, including looking at the time frame of the Trump speech and the riot. Now these people like you and me, these are people that instead of pointing fingers, they looked at that and say, what's going on here? And that's where I got my information when they started looking at it and started doing the time frames. They had the time frames, and they could show when Trump was speaking here and when the riot was going here, and the things just didn't add up. Well, it took time for that information. It didn't take time for it to get out in the public, but it did take time for it to work its way through the court system. But even so, there was a lot of miscarriage of justice. So there's really nothing more I can add to this as far as seeking justice. He's given them some justice. He's pardoned them. I don't know how many were actually pardoned and how many got their sentences commuted, but he's pardoned some and commuted others. And some of them, because their sentences were commuted, may actually be free now. Or they may be looking at freedom coming up in a matter of days or weeks or whatever. So the thing is that he took, in one stroke of the pen, he undid a lot of the misjustice that was done. It's on their record, though. It doesn't remove it from the record. It doesn't remove it from our history books. And so that's going to be a stain on our country for a long, long time. Not only the riot itself was bad enough. And I'm of the opinion that if you riot, you should pay for that. And there were some people who rioted and got arrested and got convicted, but not for rioting. Remember, they got convicted for higher crimes. So they may have already paid for the rioting. But that's what should have happened. They should have been tried for the rioting. And they ended up being tried for something worse and were in jail and everything for that. And so now they get out. But their lives have been altered. You can't, the pardon doesn't change that. To get back on their feet, to get back out there and reestablish themselves as job holders, for one thing, and so and people who are living in their own communities, being participants, and so that's going to be a long-term thing. With all that said, it is my hope and prayer that this action will help lower the anger and sense of betrayal that many, if not most, Americans felt. It was turned into a political bloodbath by the left. Fortunately, the American people saw through the entire mess and kicked the perpetrators out of the injustice out of office. Moreover, President Trump's actions could very likely level the field and calm things down. So take a deep breath, relax, and let's just watch and see how things work out. Now, the media doesn't understand President Trump and continually try to push negative scenarios on him and those who support him. Saw it yesterday, heard it yesterday. Another thing that Trump did was that he did that. The press doesn't want to acknowledge was he came alongside the Biden negotiators to help them get a ceasefire in Israel. Even the announcers didn't want to do it. And people, other commentators, oh, he claims he helped them. He didn't just claim it, he did. The negotiations weren't going very far. And then Trump sent an envoy, and that envoy went there, participated in the negotiations, and I don't know what all took place. I don't believe that's come out yet. But his influence, being backed by Trump, he was at that point the next president of the United States, carried a lot of weight. And so that played an influence there. So yes, President Biden gets credit because he's the president, or was the president then. But President-elect Trump at that time also deserves the credit, and probably more of it, because by throwing his weight in there, it got those negotiations going, and now we have a ceasefire. How long that ceasefire will last, we don't know. I do know that history teaches that you can't trust the Palestinians. They are out to destroy Israel, and and lying is just another tool they use to accomplish that. I've been reading a book that's about what happened on October 7th of, what was that year? Losing track of my time here, but I think it was it last year or the year before. It's been going. I think it's been a year before, in 23. But in any case, on that date, October 7th, they went in and they killed people. They captured women, they raped them, they beat them, they stripped them of their clothing, they humiliated them, and then they killed them, and they beheaded them as well. They did all sorts of things. They have a built-in rage that has no basis in fact. Most of the problems that they have in their communities are self-inflicted. They bring a lot of this on themselves, mostly because they hate Israel, and that is the basis of their actions. So anyhow, that resulted in the ceasefire taking place. And again, we'll see how that plays out. I'm sure that Trump will be involved in that in the future as well. So Trump now is our president. He has had a great day, and he needs our prayers. Prayer works, folks. We wouldn't be where we are today if it didn't work. Yes, the enemy, the devil, he's got his useful idiots, and they had their day. But now God's put us back in charge. But understand this. We cannot expect God to bail us out every time that something happens if we ourselves are causing the problem through neglect, lack of prayer, lack of personal devotion to Him and our own lives. We need to get back right with God. America was great once because, not of who was president, but because God found it. God is the reason this country even exists. He led men and their wives and their families, but he led men of various occupations to stake everything, their lives, their fortunes, their families, everything, on this concept of freedom, but also the concept of representative democracy based on the principles that come right out of the Bible. And we're still enjoying some of those blessings, but we're not going to enjoy them forever if we sit back and do nothing. So that's what I have to say today. Now, I would like to say this. If you enjoy this Christian News and Views, if you enjoy my commentaries on the news, then why not subscribe right down below? Be sure to subscribe. There's an icon there that you can use. Just click on it. And when you do that, you not only continue to get Christian news and views, but also becoming a published author is fun, which is for those of you who want to be writers and to be get published and things of this nature. And it's free. Just like this podcast, it's free. You go on it, and the information I give is information you can use, usually right away. So I encourage you to subscribe. But I also want you to know that when you do that, you encourage me. As a result, then I want to encourage you to subscribe. And I will do all in my power to create episodes that will inform, encourage, and inspire you. And that is where we are today. I'm looking forward to the days ahead. In the meantime, you have a great and wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next episode.